So this is the Senate. Now, like I just said, so it went through 3 readings, right? House of Commons read it 3 times. First time, they read it to see if they liked the idea or whether it was completely stupid and they just voted it down. Usually everything passes the first reading unless it really is kind of crazy. Then it goes to committee stage where the committee makes a bunch of changes. Then it goes back for a second reading or report stage. They report on it. And then there's some votes. There's some talking about whether other changes need to be made. It usually goes back to committee after that. Then there's a second reading which says, are there more changes that are needed? Yes, no, send back to committee. Then there's finally the third reading. So the third reading happened in the House of Commons. Now, the third reading, if it passes the third reading, it comes to the Senate. Now, the Senate is not elected. The Senate is not elected. The Senate is appointed by, well, the Governor General, in theory, appoints them, but keeping in mind that this is a figurehead position, it's really the Prime Minister who appoints senators. Senators are not elected. They stay in there after the Prime Minister says, hey, I would like this person in the Senate. Pretty much it always passes, especially, there's a vote on it and such, but really, whoever the Prime Minister suggests become a senator, they become a senator. And the senator, whoever's put in that position, stays there until they're 75 years old. So if you get made a senator when you're 50, you're in there for 25 years, and it's very difficult for anyone to get fired or laid off from the Senate. You either have to have a disease that affects the brain, you have to have broken the laws, there's a bunch of stuff that would have to happen for them to actually remove you from the Senate. So senators are supposedly the most experienced, and because they don't get elected, the Senate doesn't have to worry about passing laws because they just want to be voted in. They pass laws for the betterment of Canada based on what they believe. Based on what they believe would be the best for Canada. And maybe Canadians won't like it. Maybe Canada will be like, well, we don't like what you're doing. Or Canadians will say that. Senators don't care because they're not elected. They'll say, you know what, this is what's for best of Canada. So, senators, a lot of people don't like the Senate. They think it should be elected, but it's not. They are called the sober second thought. So after the House of Commons votes on it 3 times, 3 readings, goes to the Senate. Senate looks over it. Senate has its own committee, and they'll look over it. They may even make changes. So they'll make changes, etc. They'll vote on it. If it passes the Senate, it goes back to the House of Commons. Usually the Senate doesn't deny bills. It's very, very rare for the Senate to ever deny a bill brought up from the House of Commons. They might make some changes, but they won't completely deny it. They'll just make a bunch of changes. They'll send it back to the House. The House of Commons will look at it for a last time, take a final vote, and then it becomes sort of law. If on the final vote, the House of Commons, those 308 people, those 308 members of Parliament, if those 308 vote for the law, it then goes to the Governor General who signs off. Again, the Governor General never says no. So, Governor General signs off, becomes law. That is the position, and that's about it. That is the executive and the legislative. That they are the ones most involved in creating laws. Now, last but not least, the judicial branch. The judicial branch is involved in enforcing laws. So, when a law gets passed by these women and gentlemen up here, the judicial branch is the one who enforces it. They're the court system. They're the ones who say, who interpret the laws and enforce them. Interpret and enforce. So they look at the laws, they look at what people are doing, and they say, well, according to these laws that were passed by these people here, you are breaking the law, you're not breaking the law, you're going to jail, you're not going to jail, etc. That's the judicial branch. At the very highest level of the judicial branch is the Supreme Court. 9 men and women who decide the fate of all of Canada in many respects. So the judicial branch has the Supreme Court at the very top. And below the Supreme Court are the provincial courts, so provincial appeals courts. And then below that are all the smaller courts that you go to. But the Supreme Court, they don't decide like murder cases and stuff, or that doesn't go to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court's more worried about new laws that are being passed by these gentlemen here. If, for example, the the minister in charge of Aboriginal affairs, if the minister in charge of Aboriginal affairs suddenly said, I'm going to pass a law that takes all land owned and controlled by the Aboriginal people, we're going to take all of that and make it Crown land. We're going to make all land that is part of the Aboriginal peoples, and we're going to now own it all. It's going to be all ours. And we're just going to take it from the Aboriginal people. Well, the Conservative government has a majority government, so they would maybe all vote it through, and it would happen. It would just happen. No matter what anyone said, as if the Conservative government had a majority, had most of the seats, and they really wanted this to pass, it would. It would pass through. The Senate would probably and hopefully stop it, because the senators can't lose their jobs voting against it, but hopefully the senators who are also supposed to represent minority rights, the senators would hopefully vote it down. But let's say even the senators were convinced that this was the best thing for Canada. Taking Aboriginal land. Take it. It passes, it passes, it passes. Before the Governor General can sign it, or sometimes after, the Supreme Court can stop a law from happening. The Supreme Court, those 9 people, those 9 men and women in the Supreme Court, they can say that your new law that you're passing is actually in conflict with our Constitution. Our Constitution protects Aboriginal land. So I'm sorry to say, you cannot pass this law. They might anyways, but then the Aboriginal people will sue the government. The Supreme Court will look at the 2 laws, and they will say, well, the Constitution is more important than the new one you passed, so Constitution trumps this new law that you passed, and the Aboriginals get to keep their land. The Supreme Court is the one who decides if laws are fair, if laws conflict with each other. That's what they're primarily concerned with.